Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Good morning.
Right, we're going to get rolling here in just a minute. Looks like we got a couple of people all under Don Hill's name, so it looks like you were using my link, huh? Let me
Yeah.
Let me go in and change that. Let's see here. Let's rename a couple of folks.
I can rename me.
I just did Michael.
Oh, you got me. All right.
There we go. Keith and Tina ready to rock and roll. Kent got himself taken care of over there. Rodahaver, right? Rodahaver.
Rodahaver.
Yes, my man. Pots and pans. Good to see you, Kent.
Love it. Good to see you, Don. Thank you for this opportunity again. Love it.
No doubt. My pleasure.
There's Bobby Paolini, aka Don Hill, also.
Bobby P with the bow tie. Let's see. All right, we got to hook up Hendrik. My man Hendrik is rocking the Don Hill name too. I mean, I do like my name and all, but this is a little ridiculous.
Actually, it is cool to be Don Hill for a few seconds.
That's what I thought. I logged on. I thought I was a superstar.
A man can dream.
Exactly. I'll take it.
All right. Let's hook up man Hendrik here. There we go. Everybody properly named now. There he is, Mr. Owens. How you living, brother?
In living color. Doing well. How are you living?
Life is good, bro. You know that. If it was any better, I'd be twins.
Yeah.
Liking that hat, man. What is that, like an old school Buffalo Bills hat or something? I can't.
This is an on sales Dick's Sporting Goods special, and my hair was a mess this morning. Thank you.
I thought you were representing the Buffalo area because Bobby Paolini's on our panel today.
Yeah, you remember.
Steelers fan here, baby. Steelers fan here.
Nice.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to get rolling. We have a lot to, I think, talk about today, which is I believe, a very fitting topic, discussing halftime adjustments. We are in the 6th month of the year, so it does make some sense to talk about strategies and best practices of how we can close out the second half of the year strong. I know many of you have people on your teams or yourselves individually that have just been crushing it so far this year, and you might be thinking, well, I don't need to make any adjustments. Things are going so perfect right now. I wouldn't want to adjust anything. And if that's you, God bless you. And we all are very happy for you. but the reality is you never know when there's an adjustment needed. So I'm sure that you'll take strategies from this conversation that can help you in your business or in your team. If you are a team leader and there are some agents on your team who might need to make some course corrections throughout the course of this year. So we have some pretty talented people, experienced people that are going to lead this conversation today on our panel. I'll be introducing them here in just a second. Let me just do my traditional little intro. Don Hill is my name. I'm the owner and founder of Tampa Bay Real Producers. Our platform really is focused on featuring the top 500 producers, real estate producers in the Tampa Bay market. What the Tampa Bay market consists of, to be specific, is Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, as well as Pasco County. If you look at the numbers, that represents close to 25,000 licensed real estate agents in the Tampa Bay market. The vast majority of those 25,000, by the way, sell less than 5 homes a year, which is an interesting stat to look at. And so our platform is obviously focused on featuring the people that are the movers and shakers of the community. Just to be in the top 500 last year, somebody would have had to do $11 million in volume to crack the top 500. Statistically, they did 62 transactions on average per agent last year. And in total, they represented over $13.5 billion in volume with over 44,000 transactions. So if you've been featured by us or will soon be featured by us or have yet to be featured by us, but you're in the top 500, we look forward to meeting you and doing a spotlight on you at some point because, you know, you deserve it. So congratulations. If you're here and you're not yet in the top 500, this is really the only event that we host as Tampa Bay Real Producers that we open up for any and all agents to participate in. And so our goal of this panel is to provide education from the top producers. You're not going to be hearing from me the whole time for sure, so that you can steal ideas from other great people in this business. And of course, I would imagine everybody's goal, if you're not in the top 500, would be to get in the top 500 next year, right? We update our list every year. You know, we have until the end of this year to get into the top 500. And so, of course, every year we'll see what that would take to be able to get there. But excited to introduce to you guys our panelists. Let me just first throw a couple of shout outs to our sponsors that really make our entire platform possible. One of those is Mr. Ryan Owens with Milestone Title. Milestone has been a great partner of our platform now for, man, it feels like forever, right? It's been a while. It's been a while. And you guys have helped in many of our events, including our charity event that we just held with Hope Children's Home a couple of weeks back. We do have another big event scheduled in August that we're excited about. We're going to replicate our yacht evening that we did last summer. Those of you might remember that. We should have another one of those coming up here in the summertime. So Ryan, if you'd like to just say hello and say a quick word about Milestone and why you guys are a part of our platform.
Quick word. Well, number one, we love you, Don.
Oh,
So us, Milestone Title Service, we love working with good people. It's very, very, very personalized and non-transactional at a company that handles a lot of transactions. But I wanted to just say hi on behalf of Milestone Title Services this morning. We love Tampa Bay Real Producers and just the people that's attracted to this venue that Don puts on and all these great events. It's just great to get together. And I know we're going to get together more and more as we move forward. But as we're talking about adjustments, I'm looking for those out there, and Milestone is those who need adjustments in their partnerships, that need stronger, energetic partnerships and the ability to have that personal relationship and not just be a number at a title company or not have access or not have the type of trainings that we give to not only the top, but those team members that you have on your team. If you're looking for an adjustment and need a new energetic title company and partnership, we'd love to talk. And thanks, Don, for putting this on again.
No doubt, man. My pleasure. Ryan was actually a contributor in our panel last month. You could check it out on Facebook regarding social media mastery. And he is a video social media guru. So there was a lot to learn and a lot of content from that panel if you want to check it out. All of our previous panels, by the way, are live streamed right on our Facebook page, Tampa Bay Real Producers. You can check them out if you'd like. And it's a great tool to use even for your teams if you want to use them for workshops and stuff of that nature. So a couple other quick vendors I want to throw some shout outs to. I don't see my partners from Home Team Inspections, but they are a partner that really makes this panel possible. They're another one of our panel of expert sponsors. You probably all know Margot and Jeff, so a public shout out to them. I know Margot had a busy schedule this morning, but she was going to try to hop on. She still might at some point. Another one of our sponsors of this particular series is Bay to Bay Lending. DJ Rondu with the Bay to Bay team, him and his partners in crime down there in South Tampa. They serve the entire Tampa Bay market. They do a lot for really agents of all different areas throughout this market. So they've been a great partner. So if you have any lending needs, just want to get some insights and a quick shout out to them for helping one of my most recent friends here get hooked up with a loan recently. A lender an agent in this area needed to find a partner, and Bay to Bay took care of them well. So good stuff there from them. I also wanted to throw a little public love to one of our roofing partners, Kazan Construction Group, John Sutton and Jacob. Again, they do a lot of unique things, partnering specifically with real estate agents. So if you find yourself in a scenario where you need to hook up with a roofing company, check out Kazan Construction Group. They do a lot as well to support our platform. And last but certainly not least, another one of our title partners that sponsors this series and multiple events that we host, and that is Celebration Title. They work with us in our Orlando market as well as here in our Tampa Bay market, and in actually a couple other markets as well. So Amanda and the team out there with Rob as their local representative here in the Tampa Bay market. So many of you might have met them at our golfing event as they hosted a hole. Again, public shout out and thank you to Celebration Title for your support and help with the platform. So with all of that being said, of course, thank you to all of our partners and many of you who join on these panels just to be a part of the conversations, whether you specifically sponsor this series or not. You're a big part of the Tampa Bay Real Producer community, and publicly thank you for everything that you guys do to make this whole thing possible. I want to take a minute and introduce our panelists. And as you may or may not know, we're going to be throwing some questions out, which will really be stimulating these panelists to just share their thoughts and ideas. But, this is an open forum. So if you're somebody who's here just to listen, that's fine. I hope you get a ton of value out of it. If you, as we're going through these questions, feel like, hey, there's some things I can add to this conversation that would add value, please don't hesitate to raise your hand, and, we'll get you in. There also is the chat box, of course, for anybody to be able to throw some questions in there, and then we can try to get some of those answered here too as we wind through this discussion. But I'm going to be focusing most of my directed questions and my energy on the people who rose their hand earlier to be a panelist for this particular topic, and they'll be leading the spirit behind this conversation as we move forward. So a couple people I want to introduce you to. First and foremost here, Mr. Michael Wyckoff. We're excited to have him on the panel today. Michael's been a veteran in real estate in this market for years, got licensed back in, I want to say 1993. I hope I'm right about that, but I know it's been a little while. Are you correcting me there, Michael?
Original license in 91. Yeah, I became a broker in 93.
A broker in 1993. He's currently the managing broker of Engel and Volkers in Madeira Beach. He manages actually 2 different offices. They have over 21 advisors. Michael's hobbies are golf, fishing, and he's into good bourbon. I mean, who's not, right? So that we'll have to hang out sometime, Michael. That sounds fun.
I feel I'm not alone.
I don't think you're alone in that area at all. But we featured Michael a few months back as a featured broker in Tampa Bay Real Producers, and we are excited to have you here, Michael. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I also want to introduce you to Rachel Sartain Tenpenny. Rachel is a rock star. Everybody knows her with the Ready podcast. She has a background as a realtor with Smith & Associates, and then started with KW back in 2009. She has built really a dynamic organization and team there in downtown St. Petersburg with Keller Williams, really innovative with their strategies. I think that she has, in fact, if I might be wrong, but I think you're leading a workshop later today, Rachel, on this exact same topic for your team. So we're excited to hear the goods first, and then you can practice it, get it out, get the rust out now, and then deliver even better later on this afternoon, I guess. So we're excited to hear what you have to say. She's a great recruiter, a great leader. I can't tell you how many agents that we have featured out of her office in Keller Williams in our issues that have raved about Rachel's leadership. So she is a business coach. Probably she would tell you that her most important job as a leader has been with her beautiful daughter, Audrey. And I've gotten to know Rachel fairly well here lately, and we're excited to have you here, Rachel. And thank you, of course, for joining us.
Thank you.
We also have the pleasure of introducing you to Kent Rodahaver. Kent is a leader with Next Home South Point. Kent has been on a panel with us before talking about building dynamic teams. He has so many different specialized designations that it would take me probably 20 minutes to go through his entire list here. But Kent has there's a couple things that I found really interesting as I've talked with Kent. Number one, he's a graduate of Yale University's Advanced Negotiation Executive Program. I always thought that was pretty cool. He's a published author. He's a public speaker. He obviously has built dynamic teams in real estate. He's also a competitive endurance athlete. He's run multiple multi-marathons. He's a 2-time Ironman finisher. So somebody that you can learn a lot from, just a side conversation. Kent is a great personality, somebody I've enjoyed getting to know recently from a real estate standpoint, 4-time Excellence Award winner, a Pinnacle Award winner, a Premier Sales Award winner, team did over $30 million last year. So thank you again for joining us here, Kent. We're excited to have you and hear your thoughts. Like I said, guys, we have a pretty dynamic panel, so we still got a couple more introductions. Let me introduce you to Hendrik. Hendrik Bisanz. Hendrik is the founder and CEO of Sea Salt Properties, dynamic brokerage over in St. Petersburg, St. Pete Beach area. Hendrik is native to Germany, came over here to the States and has really been successful in everything he's done since coming to the States. His career in real estate began with Engel and Volkers. He, went off, focused really mostly on their luxury division, went off on his own and has built up his brokerage over there. Hendrik, I got to know a little bit more at one of our recent Thirsty Thursday events. And I don't think you want me to, I don't know if it's a secret or not, Hendrik, but I mean, you're a brand master. I would say that you are very good with creating your brand. Your team all knows about it. And there's some cool things to come with that Sea Salt Properties brand that, I don't want to spill any beans in case it's still a big secret. So I'll let you bring that stuff up later if you want, but we're glad to have you here, Hendrik. Thank you for making the time and adding some of your thoughts today. And we have a couple quick more. We have Mr. Bobby Paolini. We call him Bobby Bowtie. You guys have probably seen Bobby on a couple panels now. So I'm going to give him a shorter intro, but I'm just going to say Bobby is an author. If you haven't picked up his book yet, called Good Talk, Great Sales. I highly recommend it. It's a great read for any agent to be able to grow their business. Bobby has developed a brand for himself initially with Keller Williams, then hopping over to Berkshire Hathaway, where he really succeeded year upon year. And then just recently, this past year, was asked to be able to lead a team back with Keller Williams again, which is he's in the process of building. Very innovative leader, somebody who's passionate about personal growth and providing extra value for his team. And somebody I've gotten to know well personally, him and his beautiful wife, who we met at our yacht night last year, and recently had the pleasure of actually being able to have dinner with you guys. So that was a lot of fun. So
That's right.
Bobby, very thanks again for being here, and excited to hear your thoughts today.
Thank you so much. And Michael, you should have been there because we enjoyed some good whiskey.
Yeah, we certainly did. Next
There's
time,
the next one.
Michael, we'll have to do that up. And then last but certainly not least, I want to introduce you to Keith and Tina Slater. Keith and Tina have also recently opened up a brokerage over in St. Pete Beach called Coastal Home Advisors. We featured them recently as a featured broker a couple of months back. And at the time that we were doing the feature, that office was just opening up. So now it's been completed. It's a beautiful looking location that they have in the area out there on St. Pete Beach. Keith has been licensed since 2007. Really fascinating dude to talk to if you get some time. I think Keith enjoys his bourbon as well, by the way, from our last event, if I remember correctly. But Keith has a background in single and multifamily home investing. He's done commercial property investing. Realized that he was really passionate about just helping, the retail buyer in real estate. He ended up expanding his commercial business, but then as he was getting more and more referrals on the residential side, decided to just go into that full time. And he's been growing his brokerage with his lovely wife, Tina. And both of them have had a great start to their team. They've been in the process of building their team, and we are excited to have both of you guys here as well. So Keith and Tina, thank you for your willingness to join. And all right, that was a lot of introductions. So we have some talent that we get to open up for, and let's go ahead and dive into the topic today, which again is about halftime adjustments, course corrections to hit your yearly goals. So the first thing that I thought we would dive into would be, as a leader, whether you do this for your individual volume or your team as a whole, knowing that we are halfway through the year, 6 months in at this point, what are the, what are some of the thoughts and philosophies that you adopt when you're halfway through the year in terms of, are you looking at certain percentages of what your yearly goal was and what you wanted to be at this point? And what do you guys think in terms of what percentage of your yearly goal would you have to be at by this point to either make complete course corrections, to not make any adjustments at all? Are you always making course corrections, even no matter what the numbers are telling you? So what are your different philosophies as to how you would approach halftime adjustments? Who wants to go first? You could raise your hand.
I always just jump in, so I'll jump in. First of all, I love this topic. It's also why I'm teaching the class this afternoon and have been teaching this class for many years. But it's so important that any business owner is looking at their business plan, not just once a year. And so I look at mine on a weekly basis, and I'm tracking a scoreboard on a weekly basis so that I can make course corrections. The market's changing every day. And so the idea of only looking at a business plan once a year just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, we use a couple of different tools. My favorite one is one that's called a 411, which is the annual goal, the monthly goal, and looking at each week. What do I have to do this week in order to hit that monthly goal? And then you can make small minor adjustments as you're going. But just love that this is the conversation, because the market changes every day. So we got to change with it.
Go ahead, Kent.
Rachel, that's awesome. And you took a lot of what I was going to share right out of my mouth, but absolutely. I mean, it's great to have benchmarks. It's great to have dates, whether it's quarterly, whether it's every 6 months, whether it's your annual goals to sit back and review. But I mean, this market's intense, and it truly does. It changes every single day. And consistently review and adjust. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be a correction, but if you have a goal and maybe you're at that goal, or you've already exceeded that goal, whatever your benchmark is, look back and see maybe what it is that you've done, or how can you change your plan to even capitalize on that even more. So there's many ways that you can do that, but if you're just aware of what's going on in your market, that's critical. And course correction, Don said it when he introduced us, is critical, because when you take a jet plane or a large ocean liner, and if they're off by even less than 1 degree, the further out that vessel goes, the further off they become from their target. So the more often you review and reset, the more efficient and effective you're going to be in your plan. So that's something that I share and teach. And, I think the more frequently that you do it, the better, but it is definitely awesome, whether it's weekly, quarterly, every 6 months or annually, that you really sit down and review that. But I don't think you can do it too often.
I love that analogy. I use that a lot with my teams as well. The airplane analogy. I read somewhere that like 95% of the flight, they're off track. So they're constantly course correcting in order to be able to land where they want to land, or else they end up hundreds of miles away from their intended target, right? Who else has a thought on this part here?
I think, sorry, you got it.
Go ahead, Hendrik.
All right, I'll take it. Don, thank you very much for having me on this panel for the first time. In fact, when the topic was presented to me, I had to scratch my head for a couple of days because, yeah, we all shouldn't be in this position to having to make halftime adjustments. As it's been said already, we make adjustments all the time, but most importantly, I think I realized what I tell agents, especially new ones, you have to make a one-time adjustment. And the earlier in your career you make it, the better it is. And since you've already introduced me as someone coming from Germany, I thought that might be a good fit to explain the word for self-employed in German, which is selbstständig, right? So 2 words, and it means self and all the time. Yeah, so if you're not busy all the time, you're already doing something wrong. In this world, if you're a top producer or wanting to be a top producer, you will find yourself busy all the time. And then, of course, it's about the good kind of busy and not, the I'm wasting my time kind of busy. So I like to see my agents not just chase the next opportunity, but to build long-term relationships. Right, so bond with people. If you meet people for the first time that you're working with, and you realize you can't talk to them about anything other than real estate, then yeah, try to get the deal, try to make a commission, but that's not going to be your relationship opportunity, right? So that's my first 2 cents.
That was worth more than that, boss. Good stuff. So, I mean, to add another perspective of it too, I think you have to have goals, number one, to start the year, or what are you looking back at? All right, so if people aren't looking back, maybe they don't have goals to visualize and track. But I read this book called, I think it's called The Multiplier or Multipliers. And in there they say, or she says that all there is, or what you can see is all there is. So if you're not paying attention to that, it's kind of drifting on its own accord. And if we don't have goals and we don't look back at things, then our success drifts naturally, right? So at some point, you're going to have to course correct. Either you're going to choose to do it based on your goal setting and you're looking back and making adjustments, or you're forced to do it because your production's dropping and you're suffering other problems, right? Agents are leaving, your team's falling apart, sales are down, your expenses shoot through the roof. So measuring that, and for me, it comes from the roots of Gary Keller and Keller Williams and the way we run the market center here. And ironically, I'm not even a numbers guy, but I'm in charge of the profit. But oh my gosh, their balance sheets are insane, the details they put in tracking what they do. So I look at it like, you use the airplane, and then there was the boat from Kent. But even rocket ships, right? They invented the gyroscope because outside elements, gravity, maybe something got screwed up. It didn't work out perfect. Just like in our environment, outside elements change and they make us forget what we should be doing. The gyroscope is there to remind the computer processor where they intended to go from the beginning. And a good tip that we do here in our market center at Keller Williams is we look at the year in 10-month intervals. So 10 gives us a nice even number. It also gives us a buffer if we want to catch up to those goals to get it done by the end of the year. It also makes a very comfortable transition into the holiday season to be, stressless and more or less planning for the next year. And then as far as the markers on what we use to make those adjustments that you were saying, Don, you can look at it 2 ways. It's the seed planting actions or it's the harvest. I think the harvest is the marker, what your numbers are, but the adjustments, obviously you can't adjust the harvest, you adjust the seed planting, the actions, the strategies are developed from how those numbers change. So if we get halfway through the year and we're only 50% on target, we're behind. We should be 60% on target and then make the adjustments. And then we go to the, Joseph M. Urine or, the 80-20 Pareto principle to start working on that 20%. And that is really what gives us the launch to ensure that we hit our goals or exceed them.
A lot of good stuff there. I love the 10-month interval strategy. I think breaking that year down in a way that can be bite-sized is so important, whether that's daily. I think Rachel and Hendrik and Kent really all mentioned daily focuses and daily accountability. We're going to dive into in a few minutes here some of the best practices for how you track these things and what are those key indicators that you're actually looking for. I thought it was interesting that Hendrik mentioned like even just targeting key relationships, where it's not always just about the number of, what are sales at today, but is there a way that you're tracking the indicators of what are of how those relationships are being developed, right? And that doesn't happen necessarily overnight. So how do you track that and have that be something that's worthwhile talking about? I wanted to make sure I didn't cut anybody off. Did anyone else want to throw into that first question? I know Keith, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, Dom, what we were talking about, every market is different. You have to know your market exactly. For example, maybe the Tampa market versus the St. Pete Beach market could be drastically different. At this time of year, we felt if you aren't at about 70% of your goal, because we're so seasonal here, you're really off track. So it's kind of a hard question to answer because it's different everywhere.
Well, I guess the moral is just know your market, know where you should be with your goal to start with. It's kind of hard to create a goal when you're not sure where you should be every year. And it takes a few years to figure that out with every market. And I think some people come in and they think they should be like, okay, well, this market, all these people are here and I'm here. Just know yourself, know your market, know your goals, and start there and then build upon that.
Yeah, I was gonna piggyback onto what Keith and Tina brought up. That's exactly right. Knowing your market is the most important thing. We're very seasonal out here on the beaches. So having the Tampa shop and a beach shop, I've got two different methodologies for helping our advisors because we have different ways out here on the beaches. If we're not in the 70th percentile of your goal at this point, you're a bit behind. Exactly. But in Tampa, it's different because the summer is more moving. The South Tampa market's more moving at that point because it's schools out and before school starts again. So maybe 50% is okay. But I think the idea of the goal is the goal is your fixed position. Everything else in the middle is a dynamic environment between the time you take off and the time you land, to use that analogy of the flight pattern. You don't know where weather systems come in and boy, did we have one right this year. And make those adjustments along the way. The goal is the eye on the prize at the end of the time period that you set for yourself. In 10 months is wonderful because a lot of people mentally check out, whether they're the agents themselves or the buyers and sellers. Really, they don't want to be bothered once Thanksgiving is kind of done, right? Except for that last rush to close before the end of the year, which goes crazy. But so I think in the middle, depending on which market you're in, if the people out here on the seasonal market, if you're not 70%, it's time for a course correction. And then in a little bit, I'm sure we'll be talking about what things we do to make those course corrections and what the pandemic and everything is as well.
Go ahead, Rachel.
So like Bobby, I've used the 10-month year for a long time, and it's a really silly reason. It's easy to do math. So when you divide by 10, it makes it really easy. But also with the idea that by the end of October, you've hit your goal. So, because people, just like Michael's talking about, they'll get into December and be like, oh crud, I'm off track. And that's why all of these, being able to track it throughout the year instead of waiting until the end of the year to look at your numbers is extremely important. And with what Keith, Tina, and Michael are saying, seasonality is huge. So I watch so many agents will have a goal, and let's just say it's 50 transactions. You divide that by 10, that's 5 transactions a month, and they just do it evenly out throughout the year. But if you look at the sales cycle and where you are, you need to make course adjustments like you guys are talking about with those monthly goals, because there are going to be some months you might be doing 7 transactions and some months you might be doing 3. So taking that into consideration is extremely important. And I believe, Tina, you were talking about this, like looking at year over year, like tracking what you've been doing. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to know. We have a tool called multi-year trends, which shows you like number of listings, closed sales volume, contracts written for every month. And I was coaching with an agent a couple years ago, who's one of our top agents in the office now. And every May, she had a big goose egg in May. And she was like, I don't know what happens in May. And so what we did was we started looking at it. And what happens is at the beginning of the year, she just goes full force and just essentially runs out of steam, runs out of fuel by May and crashes and burns. So we course corrected that and created a plan for her to be able to pay attention. In March, we were planning for May. And her May has never had a goose egg in it since. She's actually never had a month with a goose egg in it since. But, you know, it's extremely important to go back and know what your cycle is, what your seasonal cycle is, what's the seasonality of the community that you focus on. And so, Michael, I love that you have one in Tampa and one on the beaches, because you're going to be putting a lot of energy in the beach market for that season. And then summer months, when nationally, those are the months that more people move. And so then you can focus that energy into your Tampa office. That makes a lot of sense.
Great stuff. Part of that power is simply just knowing your numbers, right? If you're an agent hearing this, that, you know, you're still a little bit fuzzy on just even knowing what your numbers are and the best ways to track that. Whether that's something that you figure out on your own or you just get yourself a coach. I know in many of these panels, we've talked about the power of finding a coach, right? And the impact that can have. So even if that coach is there just to help you know your numbers and, you know, help you see those blind spots that you have, that can be very powerful. And hopefully that coach is, you know, your broker or team leader or somebody that you have a great relationship with directly. But if not, I'm sure there are people that even that we've featured that would love to have a conversation and help you out. I wanted to ask about the key indicators that you look for when you're in the process of making these course corrections. I think a common theme that we heard was that, you know, it's not just about, hey, we're halfway through the year, so it's time to look at indicators, right? It sounds like we're pretty agreed upon, all of us, that this is happening daily, monthly. Maybe there's a couple of things that you might look at, you know, more quarterly potentially. But could we elaborate a little bit on what are those key indicators that you're always monitoring and measuring? I'm sure it's more than just sales, right? So there's certain things that I think would lead and lag measures. We hear a lot about that if you've read certain books, right? So who wants to share some thoughts on that? Kent, you had your hand up?
Sure, absolutely. I'll start off my little section here with a quote from Mark Cuban. And he stated, unless you have a reliable, duplicatable, scalable, and consistent way to bring in potential customers, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. Constantly, consistently. Bobby stated it, Keith and Tina stated it, Rachel talked about it. I think every one of us on here talked about planting your seeds. You know, your pipeline should always be full or that harvest isn't going to happen. And as Rachel mentioned, you know, if you get to April or May and there's a goose egg, there's probably 2 or 3 months ago a very good reason why that is. So some of the key indicators that we look at when making course corrections, other than just, you know, sales, is the effort that you put into both keeping your pipeline full and going out prospecting, meeting customers, and getting your business taken care of. You know, both Michael and Keith and Tina talked about seasonality. Obviously, right now with the intense market we're in, just market conditions, inventory. You know, we may have set goals at the beginning of last year, not knowing what our inventory was going to be at the present time. You know, those are challenges, and you know, we're working harder, I think, now than we've ever worked before. And I think the majority of the folks on this panel are meeting their goals, but we are having to be a little bit creative with, you know, with the course corrections that we're making. So those few items are definitely the key indicators that I look at as a leader, and things that I kind of coach my people on with, you know, keep a focus on on those things. You know, what kind of effort are you putting into it, and what's the market conditions?
Just a real quick follow-up, Ken. How have you found to best track effort? What are you looking for with effort?
I mean, I'm one of those bold leaders that will sit down one-on-one and I'll ask, hey, what are you doing? My back office software is neat enough that I can see if there's training videos, and if I recommend, hey, go in, watch this particular webinar if they're having an issue. And if they don't, I can go in and see that they haven't looked at it. I'm like, why haven't you watched the webinar on XYZ? This is where your problem is. And I'll call them out. This is what you need to be doing. Fortunately, I don't have hundreds of agents, so I'm really able to have a lot of one-on-one interaction with my folks. And I'm happy to do, a weekly one-on-one accountability meeting, whether it's Zoom, telephone, in person, whatever. And a lot of times, when you're face to face with someone and you start questioning them on, hey, what kind of effort are you putting into your marketing? Are you making your phone calls? Are you sending out those personal notes to those people in your sphere? And a lot of times just those questions, makes people get a little bit uncomfortable, and then they can make the adjustments themselves. And then if they commit to making those adjustments, then that's where your assistance as an accountability partner comes in and helps them with their success.
Thanks for sharing. I think there's obviously a huge difference between, working with employees and working with 1099 independent business owners, right? And that's what we all work with as brokers, or everyone in real estate is in business for themselves at the end of the day, right? So that coaching relationship and mindset, and where you're not the one who's giving them a paycheck just to show up to work every day. There's a different dynamic there, which really separates the manager from the leader, right? And how that works. So who else has some thoughts on that?
Yeah, just there's a trust piece in there too, that you want your person to want to be accountable to you, and they need to trust that you're going to help, not beat them up for not doing a great job, but you really want them to succeed. And that's a critical part of it too.
I knew I was going to jump in there with you guys talking about independent contractors. One of the funny things I like to tell people is you're self-employed. So if you're the boss and you're looking at the employee, would you keep them? And most of them say no. But this is, if you guys haven't read this book, this you're talking lead and lag measures for anybody running an organization. I've read it so many times, I've actually had to staple the cover back to it, and it's completely beat up and worn out. The principles in here, you're talking key indicators, and they reference lead measures. So the 4 disciplines are identifying the wildly important goal, identifying the lead measure, having a scoreboard, and then the cadence of accountability. I mean, when you put those 4 things into your business, and I love that, I think it was you, Don, or Kent, I don't remember, we get so many people that come into the real estate business and they are salespeople, and that is their focus, is selling a house. And very rarely do they come to the conversation of actually running a business. And that's really why people get into this, is to make money. I mean, yes, they're helping people, but we get into real estate to make money. And so that's where the business aspect of it comes in. And so those four disciplines for me should be incorporated in any business. Those are the key.
That's a good one. That brings up another question I have. What are we measuring? Are we measuring our sales, or are we measuring our profit? Right? Because I don't know about you, but I used to live off of like 50% of what I was recently bringing in, but I don't have 50% of it saved. Right? So, profit is huge for the future, but it goes down to another saying that I got from a book, and I wish I knew who quoted it. It certainly wasn't me. I didn't make it up, but it says that we overestimate what we can do in 10 years, but underestimate what we can do in a day or a week. So for us, and for people who get the habit of tracking or setting their goals and tracking them and measuring them, they get to use the calendar. I think the calendar is the best way to stay on course, to know where you're at, because if you let those days, those mornings, those days and those weeks slip, Then in 10 years, we look back and be like, what the heck? What did we do? Right? Like, how come we haven't grown so much? It's because we're thinking we have 10 years, but we're missing the week. And the week is really what it comes down to. And we at Keller Williams have this thing called the GPS, which, obviously signifies direction, right? But it stands for goals. There you go. Exactly. The plan and the strategies, right? So what procedures are you going to do for towards that one big goal, and what strategies implemented in time that actually we build off the 411. So the 411 is your goals and your vision on paper. The GPS is the directional and the process to get there. So we work with all of our top 20 and mega agents to get them there. And it starts with the calendar. So I think Kent started with it too. It's like, what are you doing? And we see each other's calendars. We share the calendars. We look at that production. We break it down into the 80-20 Pareto thing again, and see what's working and make those adjustments. But the conduit, the best thing is the calendar.
Hey, Don?
I want to add to that too. You were just asking the question, what are we actually measuring, right? When I got the invitation, Don, I was wondering if I'm the right person for this panel, because I hired a managing broker to help our agents measure their success with all the tools and all these ways that we're discussing here. I'm here at our company at Sea Salt Properties, and I measure success in terms of happiness. I want every one of my agents to be extremely happy in their lives, because happiness spreads, right? I need people that have a glass half full attitude around me. I need my agents to surround themselves with those kinds of people. And my specific measure of success is, how many more friends did I make through real estate in 1 year? And typically that's at least a handful of really good people. And you don't need 100 or more relationships in real estate to keep busy with real estate. You need a handful of very good customers of yours. And that works.
I think you froze up on us, Hendrik, but we got the point there at the end. You actually froze up at the perfect moment. It was like you delivered the punchline and then just froze right up.
It was a mic drop, right?
Perfect how that worked. But I love the fact that you brought up the power of the relationships and how it's really about a few people that can be referral partners. And I know you had your hand up, Keith, so I want to get to you as well. But I did want to just kind of follow up on that one quick thing. So what is that balance that you guys have found when we talk about course corrections and we talk about adjustments and hitting our goals? How are you balancing for your own business or for the people on your team? How are you balancing that focus of sales, goals, profit, driving the numbers, and that balance of, I joined this association, that association. I have 5 quality relationships, whatever the number is. Like there's a different focus there on those 2 areas. And both of them I know have their place and they're both important. Have you found any way that you try to merge them, balance them, support both, encourage your team or yourselves to be tracking both? Is there anything you guys can speak to there that you think has been powerful?
I think if we're only looking at sales, back to our previous point for just a second, if you're only looking at sales, you're looking at historical information, right? Help you determine whether or not you reach that goal or you're on track to reach that goal. But in the meantime, you've got to look at more details and different levels of successes, however you define them. One is maybe just simply getting appointments, adding in a certain number of people to your database, your sphere of influence, making your friends in real estate, which is extremely important. And I think the paradigm shift that's happened since the pandemic and everything, and one of the things that I've seen is that the spray and pray technique of marketing is becoming much less effective, right? People are bombarded with information because they've been locked down. They're working from home. They're dealing with media, social media much more, and it's losing a little bit of its effectiveness. And now is the time in your marketing to take that. It's got to be less marketing. It's got to be more relationship building. taking that deep dive and being much more personal with those people that are your referral sources, your customers, clients, people that know, like, and trust you. And so you need fewer, but they need to be better quality, and you need to show them exactly what Hendrik was saying is been my point all along with our advisors as well. Taking that deep dive with those people, your contact with them shouldn't be all about sales. Doing or thing. And that changed my personal business when we went into the lockdown. I went, when that whole thing started, I was like on the couch sucking my thumb, wondering if I was going to be able to survive. And then one day it snapped, and I said, you know what? Everybody else is feeling sorry for themselves. I want to be the first one to get out there and get back to work. I got to check on my friends and people that I care about, see how they're doing. That immediately flipped the switch, and business went crazy. And it wasn't anything about sales. It was just me checking in. How are you doing? Is your family okay? What's going on? Let's just talk. And those kind of relationships have springboarded my personal production, and hopefully it's helping my advisors that work with us to do that as well. I think that just the generic throw as much against wall is becoming much less.
Mike, you should come to Sea Salt. We should talk.
We're here for recruiting reasons as well. Keith, I think you have your hand up, buddy. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a couple things. Actually, going back slightly, the one thing that I did see, and I love to hear about the brokers that are here and the office managers, that they're interacting and helping their agents. The reason Tina and I opened our office in the first place is we were at several different brokerages as agents, and I saw quality people come in that could have been great agents that got zero help in there. The brokers just weren't doing anything for them. It was like, okay, we got your license here, now go out and sell real estate.
And that was just their model. I mean, there's so many different brokerages that have different models, and that's okay. Whatever model you want to claim, that's fine. But I think that people get confused too, as far as how much support they're actually going to get when they do join. I don't know how we got off on that, but
well, it's from the last broker.
Yeah.
And anyway, then the other thing as to changing during the pandemic, this was the drastic thing. We have so many clients, especially our Canadian clients, that can't get here. And now all of a sudden reaching out to them to make sure they're okay. We go into their houses to flush their toilets and turn the lights on to make, to get rid of the evaporation. And the other thing is we never imagined selling so many homes sight unseen on FaceTime.
So there's a lot of different evolving.
Yeah.
The market evolves.
It happened during the age of Zoom, huh?
Yeah.
It's one good way to look at it. Great stuff. I think that if we're talking about these lead and lag measures, the relationships is obviously a lead measure, right? Like how are they proactively facilitating relationships, whether that's attending organizations or actually reaching out via social media channels or other ways to just develop new relationships, attending events, things of that nature. And then obviously the sales and all of the bottom line profit is the lag measure that comes as a effect of filling the pipeline with those right relationships. So it goes back to the power of the lead and lag principles that Rachel brought up in the book there for Disciplines of Execution. Definitely a great read if you haven't picked that up. Let's talk a little bit more about, whether this is 6 months into the year or really the timing doesn't really matter as much, I guess, from my opinion, but what are some of those conversations and best practices for course correction? So, you're talking to an agent or you've recognized in your own business that things are not where they need to be, right? You both are on the same page with that awareness. And so, okay, there's some course correction definitely needed here. We're off track. It's obvious we're off track. Maybe I know exactly what the problem is. Maybe I don't. But what are some of those best practices that you have found, again, for your own business or people you've coached and helped to help people get not only on track, but I also would encourage you to tie in like the ongoing accountability to that. So how have you merged those two together? Bobby, you had your hand up.
Thank you, sir. Like I said with the calendar, that's kind of where you look to see where the problem is. But what you look at comes from the 3 pillars that hold all of our business up. And it's kind of a KW thing, I think. That's where I learned it. But it's leads, listings, and leverage. It's one of the three or two or all the above. There it is. So it's either actions to increase your leads if that's short, or if you're running around with your head cut off and you keep using the B word and making that as an excuse, that's an inhibitor, right? If we're busy, then that's our excuse to not grow. So maybe you need leverage, people leverage, asset leverage, system leverage, tool leverage, or maybe you can't keep listings on the market. So now your buyers are going down, and then the buyers you do have or your team has, they're just not getting them under contract and they're falling off. You're not marketing because you don't have the listings. So you just look at the weakest point of those three sustainable pillars. And for us, like, we have a capping system, right? So even if you're a $200 million producer, your company dollar, you're only worth 13,000, but yet, because that's your cap, but yet our plan is to meet with the top 20, especially the rainmakers, our mega agents, constantly week after week. So we don't let those weeks go by, using the GPS to guide them based on their plan. And we do it in increments of 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. And we happen to call it, Rachel, you know, the 30, 60, 90. Yes. And the 30, 60, 90 is a ongoing thing with the GPS. So yeah, we're full of systems. It's insane. Which is why, you know, we do a lot of growth, and we're managing 439 agents in our market center and 14 staff members. So that's how you do it for us.
So I wanted to go with what Bobby's saying. One of my coaches taught me what's called the feedback triangle, and I love using the feedback triangle. So if you just think of a triangle on the foundational piece of it, the base of it is mindset, habits, and skills. If you draw that out and you put mindset, habits, and skills on the bottom, and you put your schedule, Bobby keeps talking about a calendar, put your schedule on one side and then your goals on the other. And the result is what you get in the middle. And so if your result is not what your goal was, the feedback of it is, did I have the right mindset? Did I have the right habits? And do I have the skills necessary to hit the goal? Did my schedule reflect my goal? And all of those things combined are what give you the results. Being able to use a tool like the 411 is, you know, if somebody's off track, I call it the 6 conversations. So would be attempts, contacts, appointments, offers, contracts, and closings. And in between each of those is a conversation. So if you don't have the number of contracts or closings that you want, we can go back and we can say, okay, how many contracts have you written? How many offers have you written? Appointments, contacts, and attempts. And what is that conversion rate in between there? If we find that somebody's not doing enough appointments, for example, I'm not going to say, okay, well, this week you need to do 10 appointments because last week they only had 2. They have to get in the habit of having enough conversations and having the conversations to actually schedule an appointment. So if they've been having 2 appointments a week and we need to get them to 7, I don't know, I'm just making up a number here, then the following week, I'm going to ask them to schedule 3 appointments. If they hit 3, then maybe we can go to 4 the next week. But if they still are hitting 2, I'm going to keep 3 as the goal until we get there. Then we can make those incremental adjustments because it's a habit building. Like you can't just have a goal and jump from one big pond to the next. So those would be some things that I like to track, and then I like to dig into and say, okay, what are your conversion rates, and where is the mindset, the skill set, or the habits not showing up that needs to be showing up so we can dive in and get those right.
Some great stuff there. Ken, I'm going to have you go next. I just want to make sure people didn't miss a couple quick things. You know, the power of incremental goals. That's so important. You know, you might feel like you're off track, but that doesn't mean that you have to, you know, go from X all the way or go from A to Z, right? Like get from A to B and build some momentum, get a little bit of traction. And who knows, you could still, with a lot of time left, still end up hitting that Z goal. But incremental goals are so critical. Bobby threw out their leads, listings, and leverage. That's a great system to kind of clarify your criteria in those 3 areas and where is the biggest area of opportunity. And of course, we love Rachel's triangle of habits, skills, and mindset. I like how Bobby throws an idea out there, and Rachel has the visual backup, right, ready to go. Like just it was a partnership right from the get-go. You can see
I'm a very visual person. I probably have a drawing on everything he's going to talk about.
Kent, go ahead, man. I know you had a couple things to add.
No, it's awesome. And you took a lot of my thought and put it into words just now, Don. And it's true. What I was just going to point out is just within, Rachel and Bobby, there's a very obvious common theme here, and that's short lists of actionable items. ABC is 3, A to Z 26. The smaller and more compact you make that list of action items, the better that you're going to get engagement. I teach a class called Day One to my agents and other agents as well. And one of the things that we focus in is super simple: start, stop, continue. And when you have accountability, or when you get to a benchmark and you want to have a conversation about, hey, what's working, what's not working, just about anything that we have in any one of those items on Rachel and Bobby's list, look at that particular item. Is it not working? If not, stop. Is it something I'm not implementing that might work? Start it. Is it consistently working? Are you looking back 3 months from today, or 3 months prior to today? And is that action item actually producing something for me? Then continue it. And again, it's a simple short list: start, stop, continue. I know there's a bunch of readers in here, and obviously Rachel and Bobby have held up some of their books, but another thing is—
Oh, that's the one I was looking for, Don. Thank you. It's a little too close to the camera. I was like, he's talking about the one thing.
That's it. That's the one. That's the one.
Absolutely. And then right now, I'm just started on this, and we're going to probably do this with my team, but it's a book called Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blunt. He's awesome. He's written 8 books that are really, really just pretty bold and really kind of put you in a spot. But this one we just started on, and it's awesome. So, are you out prospecting? Are you filling that pipe? Do you have a pipeline of business coming? You don't want that goose egg in April that Rachel referred to. You want to constantly, even if it's just trickling stuff in there, do what Hendrik said. Have your small group of great friends and call on them. Let them help you fill that pipeline. That's the best marketing you can have. And if it's just 10 people that love you, trust you, and believe in what you're doing, let them go out and be your marketing team, and just continue with your other prospecting. So for us, start, stop, continue.
It's so important to keep things simple, right? And it's really important to remember at all times to just reinforce. Hardly ever do you tell people something that they've never heard before, but you tell them something that they've forgotten. And reminding them, for example, of the 80-20 rule is so important, right? Whatever your 80-20 is, define it for yourself and follow through with it. So my 80 is customer relationship management. I think that came a little bit short. CRM is my 80. And it's not that time consuming because I don't have to hit 500 people with that. It's a much smaller group, and it'll pay off. It'll improve your life. I always tell my agents, you're going to die of frustration if you just chase the next deal. So the goal is be happy.
You should have that theme song, Hendrik. Don't worry, be happy. Just playing in the background of your office at all times. Create the culture that you're looking for, my man. Keith, I wanted to give you an opportunity, and Michael, to not always have to be last. That's not the order that we were trying to go in here. So Keith, do you want to throw something in there first?
Tina?
I'm good.
You're good. No worries.
For this topic, I'm good.
We'll do next topic.
No worries. Michael, did you have anything?
No, I'm good. I'm fine going last 2. I used to be a relief pitcher. So good.
The one thing I did want to emphasize, which a couple of you kind of brought up, was in my viewpoint, what I see a lot from agents I've talked to, and even outside of real estate, is the idea of when people are off track, a lot of times it's an overwhelming feeling, and they don't necessarily, there's a lot of drama that starts to build up in our own head about all the reasons why we're off track, right? And one of my mentors a long time ago taught me the idea that you can either have reasons or you can have results, but you can't have both. And it was this combination of we tend to get very focused on a lot of these reasons why things are not where they need to be. Sometimes those could be internal or external type reasons. But it was powerful that I think it was Kent that brought up, like, when you can simplify the focus to just one thing that can move us forward and take one step in the right direction, it really eliminates a lot of that overwhelm that usually occurs when people are feeling like they're off track. And even when they're not communicating that they're feeling that way, you know, the reality is that we all know that they are feeling that way. And at times we've all felt that way, you know, when we're off track from our own goals and we're searching for whatever the reasons or answers might be. So much power in just that one thing, whether it's the book or not, but just helping as a coach. I feel like that's really the job of any good coach or any good consultant, is helping your person, your client, whoever your person is, just identify that one thing that can take a step in the right direction and then allow some momentum to build from that. You know, because momentum is a pretty powerful thing once it gets going. Is there anything that you guys wanted to add in there regarding specific, like, accountability systems that have worked really well for you once somebody starts to get going in the right direction and momentum is starting to be built? In a second here, I'm going to give you a chance to think about it, but I would love to hear. I think there's a lot of power in actual stories, right? And like real life stories of turnaround cases that you've experienced, that you've seen. And so I'm going to ask you guys to hopefully share some stories in a few minutes that you've seen happen where people were like having a horrendous year and then ended up still hitting their goals, or, you know, miracle stuff happens. One of my favorite quotes is magic is reserved for those who refuse to quit. And so there's a lot of powerful stories out there that I hope you guys can elaborate on a few of them. But as you think about those, are there any other specific, like, accountability systems that you have seen work for you once someone starts heading in the right direction that we haven't quite touched on yet? Bobby?
So there's a couple things. One, I like to, for self accountability, I don't really like to tell people what they should be doing, but for self accountability, we set it up before they start to fail, right? Like, what are you going to do to remind yourself of the importance of this goal? And I got it actually from our buddy Hal, or your friend Hal, from the Miracle Morning. So I put myself through this torture starting at 4 a.m. that reminds me, like, why am I doing this? Everyone's asleep. It's super tough. It's not like I have high cholesterol. I'm just like, this is crazy. And that reminds me of the grit and determination needed, because I'm still not there. But for the agents, and especially managing a big team or a big brokerage, we're implementing communities and groups of people with like goals or like phases in their business. And we create accountability partners and pairing them up. In fact, when I led a Bold team, and we did Bold just a couple months ago, we kind of tried to roll out the same thing, and it was really effective, you know, just to walk 2 by 2 with somebody else and have a voice to bounce things off. And we've all got our individual talents. So these communities will help people kind of each one teach one and elevate them down a path that always grow. So there's no agent left behind. But if we can help them understand their own dreams and vision and why they're here, then we attach an anchor of effort to do something that's good for them, to where they won't let influences take them off course. If it has to be something about like their big why or why they're doing it, whatever it is, it's self-accountability, and then creating an environment where they have accountability partners and access and resources to other people that keeps them going with some accountability systems.
I love that buddy system program. I mean, it's so money. It works if you can hook them up with somebody that's even in the same boat or was just struggling last quarter or last year and ended up pulling through that particular challenge to be able to get to the next level. So much power in trying to partner those people up with an accountability partner that they can have that hope with. I love that idea. Anyone else, Michael?
I think Bobby brought up a good point in having that accountability partner for sure. But I think, as for those of us who are brokers and coaches, we need to understand that goals are not necessarily, and our methodology is not the same as the people we're trying to help coach to become successful. I think that's an important factor that some coaches, brokers lose sight of. They just set a goal and then they want to plug everyone else into their system, make that work. I think as an accountability partner, especially those of us, I mean, no offense to the guys that have big shops, because I know you break it down into the smaller teams and whatnot so that it becomes much more personal. But for those of us who have smaller operations, it's more important for us to get deep in with our agent advisors, to understand their methodology, because there's no one right system. But the way to find out how to help our advisors and those around us is to find out what their goals are, what it means to them, get to their why, and then we can build the steps up to reaching that particular goal. And they become their own accountability person. We're just there to be the sounding board or the principal, if you will, to say, hey, have you done what you said you were going to do? In building their plan, it's asking them questions on what's important to them and how did they think they're going to get there. Maybe we provide ideas to spur some thought, to give them some creativity on how to get to their goal and those incremental steps. But ultimately, they have to answer to themselves because they are in business for themselves. But we're just there to be that, right? Like the fishing guide. We tell them where to cast the bait and help them in that respect. But they have to tell us what kind of fish they want to catch.
Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, just to kind of build on what Bobby and Michael just said, it's just critical that you are able to not just manage, but communicate and understand the individual, and that individual needs to understand you. So part of the curriculum that I teach with day one is the importance of the DISC personality assessment, and also, to do a self-assessment with your SWOT assessment as well. But, with the DISC assessment, several of us talked about, hey, it's not all about numbers. It's not about how many sales did you make. Maybe not as the greater organization, but maybe to those one or two agents that fit that, that personality, maybe that is what's important to them. And, you need to keep that in mind as well. Everyone's different, and it's tough to create this cookie cutter, here's the way that we're going to do things. Here's our, outline of accountability. Here's how we're going to do it. Like Michael said, some of us have smaller offices, and those that don't, they do a great job of breaking it down into, teams and different accountability groups. But it's not just important for us as leaders to understand the DISC assessment and what each of those individuals fall under, but they need to understand who they are. And when they start falling short of something, or if maybe they're a D and they're not performing something that a C person would perform, it's not bad. That doesn't make them a bad person. And if that's where their struggle is, focus on those strengths. But, it's important that they recognize that within themselves. They recognize that within their leaders, and they also recognize it. I think Hendrik might have touched on this too, that you recognize it within your people, within your sphere. What kind of customers do you have, and how do they want to be associated with? So we use the DISC assessment a lot, and I think it's just a critical piece, not to go in and necessarily take the exam, every 6 months or so, but just to understand what it is and, what the needs of those people and what those strengths and requirements are.
Yeah, I know Rachel had her hand up. One thing I'll say that I've seen a lot of leaders use these different assessment tests to try to help them gain extra information. And the one challenge I've seen sometimes with them is just taking assessment tests for the sake of taking assessment tests and not actually learning how to use the assessment test, right? And Kent, you can obviously tell they're actually taking the time to not only just take the tool, but actually use the tool and know how to be able to get value out of the tool. So just a side note, because I've seen a lot of people go down that other path, and that's not as effective, and it starts to actually, I think, hurt in many ways. Rachel, go ahead.
I love that you said that, because I am a student of behavioral assessments, and I don't do the DISC anymore, Kent. I don't send people the DISC assessment anymore because I don't need to. I can usually figure out who they are just like that. We have one we call a KPA, and I know Jack Smith was on here just a few minutes ago, and I don't like to use the KPA by itself. I always use the KPA with who are you working with, and where are you going to work really well together, and where are there going to be some gaps, and how do we bridge those? And I know Silvio is on Jack's team, and that was the exact thing that I went through with them. Most top producing agents, their structure level is like a 0, -2. But most people who work administratively or on a marketing aspect, their structure level is higher. And so I saw that huge gap on their team. I was like, just to let you know, you're never going to be able to provide the structure that this person needs. However, you can put this person in the middle to kind of bridge that gap, and it's worked beautifully. So I'm a big student of that. And just wanted to also go back with what Michael was talking about with accountability. You know, I think accountability partners is something we use that terminology quite often. I don't think that most people are brave enough to hold somebody accountable to the goals that they've set for themselves. So Michael Reedy, he always says your accountability partner is nothing more than a mirror. You said you wanted to accomplish this. All they do is ask you. So you said you wanted to accomplish this. Did you accomplish that? But most people won't hold somebody actually accountable to the goals that they've set out for themselves, and they skirt around the conversation. So, you know, when we're talking about accountability partners, I think that it's important that we have the courage to actually help somebody hit the goals that they've set for themselves. It's not a mean thing. It's helping them get to where they want to go. And I've found very few people in my world that are willing to have that level of conversation with me. I mean, hold me accountable.
It's a great point, Rachel. One thing I'll just quickly add to that is that I've found in my experience coaching clients that if you can tie in the accountability to people that are important to them, a lot of people will work harder for people they love than for themselves a lot of times. And so it could be something as simple as something that for a spouse, and there's, you know, you build that relationship with the spouse, and you know that there's something that they could do for their spouse if they just hit this goal, right? Or they can do for their kids, or they can do for, you know, their church, or whatever it is. If there's a real purpose bigger than just their own bank account that can be affected by the ability for them to stay accountable to their goal, I've always found that to get more traction in most cases than the individual, you know, buddy up and you have to call this person out. I agree completely with what Rachel said. That can be very tough, and it's just tough to have that accountability unless that relationship is just so rock solid, which is not usual. And so, but if you can find a way to leverage those important relationships that they really care about, and then, you know, to me, that's, as a great leader, you want to know who those people are anyway that they really care about, right? And have that be intertwined into the conversation somehow. Hey, Jack, I love the mustache, man. You must a little bit. Is your hand up, Jack?
Yeah, my hand is up. Hold on a second. Yes, it is up. Let me just say this. I cut myself really bad shaving, so I had no choice, and everybody else seems to like it. So it's starting to bother me, but I'll shave it off maybe this weekend. But anyhow, you know, I want to just address what you talked about. Maybe you worked harder because of the people that loved you. Well, maybe it's the people that believed in you before you believed in yourself. And certainly I can speak for our leadership in this office that I have watched that, witnessed and watched that happen. And I was on Bobby's bowl team. He was our team leader, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, was it Bobby? Whatever it was. We got incredible results. And because we got such good, and I love bowl. This is in 5 years, this is my 12th or 13th time. So I absolutely love it. But I'm back in another bowl group in North Carolina. But I think the point is, when you have things like that hold you accountable, everybody says, I don't want to do bowl, I want to do bowl, I want to do bowl. I disagree. Just do it because it holds you accountable. It's the cheapest coaching you're ever going to get, right? And then you've got other people, you've networked with other people around the country, you know what's going on. But the other thing I want to share is when this whole COVID thing started, James Shaw, who's, I don't know, he's pretty known in the Keller Williams world, started this phone call at 7. We started 8:20 in the morning. No, we started at 7:30 in the morning. We go to 8:20. But then one after that branched out was we have script practice from 6:30 to 7 every morning. And then again, we have script practice from 8:20 until 9. So I have to tell you, that has pushed us to more than meet our goals. I mean, we had a really good year last year, but when you have good leadership behind you across the board and you have a good coach, it really makes it work. So, you know, everybody laughs at us because we do this, you know, we use script practice in the morning, then we go to that call with James, then we go to script practice with people in North Carolina, and then we lead gen till 11:30. You get the results. You know, you get reasons or results. Wasn't that one of the bold laws, reasons or results? You can't have both, right? So anyhow, thank you for bringing that up, because I think that when people believe in you, and it was certainly Rachel and Elijah who were first here, you know, leaders like that you have on the team leaders you have here, they see, even though I was 63 when I started this, is my 4th career, right? They see in you what you don't see in yourself. And if you've been a good producer to begin with, you can be a good producer again. And I was telling my granddaughter the other day, she said, well, why do you work so hard, Jack? And I said, I love it. It's my passion. Oh, here's Rachel.
Well, I wanted to say it's very important, no matter the size of your brokerage, how well you know the people that you care about. So I had to share with you guys this. I found this shirt yesterday, and I'm like,
Bobby will love it.
buy this for you. Can you guys?
It's all bow ties.
Bobby is so jealous right now.
I'll get one for you, Bobby. It'll be my bold gift to you. We can't hear you. Anyhow, thank you, Rachel. Thank you. The reason I'm dressed casual is because we're going on a photo shoot and using jet skis to arrive at a house. So that's the reason I'm casual. I'm normally dressed. But anyhow, let me get off that topic. But thank you again, Bobby, and thank you, Rachel. And certainly, Don, for all the leadership you have given all of us, and the hope you have had in us, and the trust you have had in us.
Oh, thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. And it's definitely my pleasure. All right. So before we wrap up today, definitely wanted to give you guys a chance to share some powerful stories of agents that, you know, took some of these principles that we've been discussing for the last, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And, I personally, I just believe that sometimes stories resonate in people's minds more than facts and more than specific tools, right? So if there are any powerful stories that you can share of people that were at X and not on track, and they made this adjustment and this is what happened. And, now they've been up and down and all over the place, but anything like that, I think can add some value here over the next few minutes. Anybody have any that you'd want to start with?
No.
Your story, not me.
Uh-oh.
That's great.
Someone's getting volunteered, I think. That was Tina telling Keith to tell.
Yeah.
No.
Actually, it is kind of a funny.
I didn't know that I was on. I thought I was on mute. I purposely muted that.
It's actually kind of funny. I had, for a brief period of time, I owned some strange car dealership. I had closed all that, and it's when I first started working as a realtor, single, living on the beach.
2014, 15.
Yeah. So I was just kind of working part-time, so to speak, doing $3.5–4 million a year, not much.
I was in the corporate world working for cars.com for 10 years. I had got my real estate license in 93, kind of going back into it.
So then that year that I think I did, like I said, $3.5–4 million. The year Tina and I went together, we did 11.
I was like, get off the couch. I'm quitting my 6-figure job at cars.com after 10 years. We're going to make some money and we're going to, create something.
So in a period of 5 years, it evolved into us owning a brokerage, which we didn't have the intent to do, but things evolve.
So the course correction, if you're struggling, is to just get married and everything will be all right.
Well, and
depending on the partner.
Well, and things do sort of evolve. Like one day he was sitting there, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just doing my, your continuing ed. And I'm like, well, why don't you just get your broker's license? It sounds better. Why don't you just get that? Okay. But had I not been walking by the office that minute saying, hey, what are you doing? He would have just done his ed and went on, and we would have never really started what we did. But just things evolve, and just really be open to all the opportunities that are out there because every day we have so many opportunities that we either don't identify or we don't see, but they're there every day to just that one little thing. It's not about sometimes the big things that we plan and the big goals. It's about the little decisions that we make every single day that just change our life in ways that we don't know it.
Anybody else have? Thank you for sharing. I think that point is, I think in many ways sums up a lot of our conversation today, is like the one step forward. Who else has some examples of people who have made those individual decisions, those little decisions, and the big impact it's made?
I have one for you, Don.
Go ahead, Rach.
Oh, wait. Where am I? Oh, there I am. Sorry. I got up, couldn't find myself. So I don't know if you guys know Denise Antonowitz. She's one of our top agents in the office. And, you know, those little changes make a huge difference. So last year, about mid-year through, you know, she had grown her team substantially. She had 4 or 5 buyer's agents, and she was out getting the listings and, you know, 2 administrative support team members. And she was pretty much at her wit's end. If you have 5 buyer's agents and they're all calling you with the questions and the needs and everything, plus running your listing side of the business, she was out of bandwidth. And so I had recommended to her about hiring a lead buyer specialist, and had a great candidate right here in the office. So we went through everything and it worked out. And so Gina joined Denise's team as a lead buyer specialist. And it does take time to get traction, but now we had added a piece of leverage to the business. A couple months later, I think they closed in March. I know they closed like 17 transactions. By the end of the first quarter, she had almost had hit her annual goal. So, I mean, that's huge growth. Just adding that one piece, just knowing that one little difference to put in there, and then seeing the massive change that it had.
Awesome, Rach. Appreciate you sharing. It goes back to Bobby's point earlier about the leads, listings, and leverage. So that was one little thing that Denise changed on the leverage side that had drastic results, it sounds like. Anybody else can think of an example or story where just a little course correction made a massive difference? I'm putting you on the spot, so it's all good if you can't.
I can jump in real quick. Michael, you please go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ken. You got it.
Okay. Yeah, I have a couple of, I guess, cases that I could share. You know, you always want your people to do a little bit better, and they all have struggles. And, you know, especially with the environment that we've been in, you know, socially, professionally, and everything for the past, you know, year and a half, there's a lot of emotional things going on. You know, there's relationship things that are outside of real estate that, you know, a lot of couples are dealing with, you know, uncertainty and just different struggles. So I think just having great conversations, and I know a lot of y'all have been commenting on my chat entry on the book Dare to Lead. It's been a game changer for my entire team. And it was one of the Christmas presents that I gave to my entire crew at our Christmas party, was the book Dare to Lead. And we had a discussion that we were going to do a group workshop on this, and we were going to read it. We were going to meet and almost do like a book club. And it is all about vulnerability, both from a leader's perspective as well as, you know, from the associate's perspective. And it's about coming to someone, you know, with an open heart, you know. And if, you know, I have one of my associates come to me and say, hey, you could do a better job as a broker. There it is, Rachel. Exactly.
She doesn't miss a beat, huh?
I love books.
Yeah. And I mean, from a leader's perspective, it'll beat you into a different place, you know. And really, you have to be open to allow people to come in and tell you, hey, you're not doing a very good job, or you need to work on doing this a little bit differently. But also knowing that they can come to you, you know, openly, knowing that anything that you say, whether it's, you know, what some might seem hurtful, you're telling them, you know, that you want them to do a certain thing because it comes from a place of love. Effective, game changing. And I did have, you know, one of my associates who was struggling. You know, at one point, this person was nominated Realtor of the Year. A year later, this person was ready to give it up and leave the business, struggling. You know, we brainstormed some things, talked, had these heartfelt phone conversations, had some accountability things. A year later, after putting some of these things that we talked about into place, is now about 300% above where they were when they had the nomination for Realtor of the Year, and just killing it. And, you know, going and digging into your sphere and coming from a different place. It's just not all about the sales and numbers. And when you kind of stop thinking about that, it's amazing how fast that bucket fills up when you're not necessarily just focusing on those things. So, yeah, I have a lot of small little successes I could share, but that's one that just gives me the goosebumps. And it's why we do what we do. You know, us as brokers, owners, managing brokers, team leads, we're doing this from a place that a lot of people don't understand. It comes from your heart. You know, we want to teach, we want to lead, we want to share what we know. And that's where the fulfillment is. And to be able to meet with this group right here, and Don, you just do an amazing, amazing thing. I probably learn 10 times more than I contribute every time I'm on one of these panels, and I love it. And Michael, I know you wanted to share something. I'm dying to hear what it is, and I'm hoping it's just an amazing story as well. So take it away.
Well, no pressure there. I'm sure it's not amazing or earth shattering or anything, but golly, what a way to finish up. So no, kind of hearkening back to what I mentioned earlier about there were things. One story is my own. As a broker, I do personal production. So at the end of 19, you know, I had a decent, what I would say, met my goal for 2019. Started off 2020 okay, but was kind of resting on my laurels a little bit with that momentum. And then, of course, the COVID situation hit. As I mentioned, I went into like a personal, it's almost embarrassing to say it, but I think I'm not alone. And then one day just decided that I'm not going to let this define me or wreck my business. If everybody else is going to go, I'm the only one out there working, I'm going to want to be the one to do all the business. And having done that, I found that several of our advisors within our offices were having the same feelings that I was. And then I was able to show them, just not to toot my horn, but as an example, just get out there and start doing some business and change the way we're marketing, and do that on a very personal level instead of the spray and pray, as I drew out there earlier. Just do something meaningful, do something personal. You know, get away from the shotgun approach and go to the rifle approach to talking individually to people on a deep and meaningful level without being salesy, and just making that really personal connection. And that helped a couple of our advisors really get out of a funk that they found themselves in, and gave them some confidence just to see that someone else had done it that was close to them and that it had worked for them. That gave them the confidence to go out there and do it too. And one of the things that I like to do is tell people, if you're not sure of where you're at, or you're scared, you know, we operate in a little higher end space. Sometimes a lot of our listings are in the premium segment, and some of our advisors are nervous about that and scared. So I tell them, go in there and mix it up, and I'm there with you the whole time. I walk in as though I'm their partner, and walk into the listings with them, or I go on the showing appointments with them to give them that confidence. And we usually have some sort of a little signal where, you know, hey, if you pull on your ear, I'm getting nervous, I'm scared, you got to jump in and help me out, you know, give me the high sign, or, you know, the steel sign, you know, and then I jump in and sort of take over a little bit more. But so those are the things as coaches, I think, and mentors that we can do for our people. Be there providing that support, and then sharing our successes with them and translate them into how they may work for them.
Awesome, guys. I really appreciate all your preparation and everyone's value adds. Two quick thoughts. Michael really ended us well with the idea that, you know, speed of the leader equals speed of the pack, right? So if you're in a team lead situation where your volume and your attitude, and what was it, the three elements of the triangle that Rachel brought up, your habits, your skill set, and your mindset, if any of those three things are out of whack as the leader, you can imagine what the rest of the team is feeling, right? And so the ability to course correct ourselves is many times a starting place to be able to move the organization in a certain direction. And then, you know, Kent's example was an example of just one person making a change using the book as a tool, but it was the mindset change, right? That's really what the book stimulated, was that one element of the triangle, which was the mindset. And that, of course, changed everything for the future opportunities. So thank you so much, guys. This is a live stream for anybody who would like to rewatch it. It's on our Facebook page. Next month, the topic is called Methods of Mega Agents. So if you are somebody who is a mega agent, or you have someone you want to nominate as a mega agent, we would love to talk to them about our next panel, which will be next month. So you guys have a great day, have a great month, and we will talk to you later.
Thanks.
Thanks, Don. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank y'all.